Before online shopping, before the malls closed one by one, Canada had grand department stores, places you didn't just shop, you visited. Elevators with operators, Santa Claus parades sponsored by the store itself, perfume counters that smelled like a special occasion. But most of them are gone now, bought out, downsized, erased from the skyline. Today we're remembering 10 Canadian department stores that vanished completely. If you remember walking through any of these doors, make sure you hit subscribe, because we're bringing back a lot more lost pieces of Canadian history.
1869, Timothy Eaton opened a small dry goods store on Yonge Street in Toronto. He had two radical ideas: fixed prices and goods satisfactory or money refunded. No haggling, no pressure, just trust. That trust built an empire. The Eaton's catalog became a lifeline for rural Canadians, delivered to farmhouses from coast to coast. By the mid-1900s, Eaton's had flagship stores in nearly every major city, anchoring downtown cores and shaping how Canadians shopped. The Eaton Centre in Toronto still carries the name today, but the company behind it didn't last. The Santa Claus Parade, started by Eaton's in 1905, became a Canadian tradition that outlived the store itself. By the 1990s, Eaton's was struggling against big box competition and changing habits. In 1999, the company filed for bankruptcy. A brief relaunch attempt failed, and by 2002 the Eaton's name was gone from Canadian retail for good. Older Canadians still remember the wonder of walking into an Eaton's at Christmas. The window displays, the toy department, the feeling that this was where shopping actually mattered. Eaton's didn't just sell goods. For over a century, it was the store that built modern Canadian retail, and its fall marked the end of an era. Founded 1872, Robert Simpson opened a small store on Yonge Street in 1872, just a few blocks from his biggest rival, Eaton's. For a century, the two competed head-to-head, and that rivalry defined Canadian retail. Simpson's built a reputation for a slightly more upscale experience. Its flagship Toronto store, with the Arcadian Court restaurant on the top floor, became a destination for ladies who lunched and families dressed in their Sunday best. In 1952, Simpson's partnered with Sears Roebuck to launch Simpson's Sears, a catalog and store chain aimed at middle-class Canada. The original Simpsons banner continued separately, running its flagship stores in major cities. But by the 1970s, the writing was on the wall. In 1978, the Hudson's Bay Company bought Simpsons outright. The stores were slowly converted to Bay locations through the 1980s, and by 1991, the Simpsons name disappeared from Canadian storefronts entirely. The Simpsons Sears side of the business carried on for decades afterward under the Sears Canada banner, but the original Simpsons department stores were gone. Torontonians who remember the Arcadian Court, the elegant window displays, and the quiet rivalry with Eaton's still speak of Simpsons with a certain fondness. It was the store for people who wanted just a little more polish. Simpsons didn't lose to changing times. It lost to the company that eventually swallowed almost everyone. Vancouver, British Columbia. Founded 1892, Charles Woodward opened his first store in Vancouver in 1892, and it quickly became the heart of the city's shopping district. The flagship store at Hastings and Abbott Street was topped with a massive rotating W sign that lit up the downtown skyline for decades. Woodward's was famous for its food floor, a full grocery department inside the store that Vancouverites relied on for everyday shopping. The annual $1.49 day sales became legendary, drawing crowds that lined up around the block for bargains. The chain expanded across British Columbia and into Alberta, becoming a true Western Canadian institution. For generations, Meet Me Under the W was simply understood by anyone in downtown Vancouver. But by the 1980s and early 90s, Woodward's was overextended, carrying too much debt from rapid expansion. In 1993, the company filed for bankruptcy. All the stores closed. The flagship building sat empty and boarded up for over a decade, a hulking reminder of what the city had lost. Eventually, the building was redeveloped into housing and retail space, and the iconic W sign was restored and lit up again, a nod to the past, even though the store itself never returned. Older Vancouverites still remember the rotating W, the food floor, and those chaotic $1.49 days. Woodward's wasn't just a store. It was downtown Vancouver. Founded in 1962, Woolco arrived in Canada in 1962 as the discount division of Woolworths, bringing American-style big-box shopping to Canadian suburbs. Sprawling stores, wide aisles, everything from clothing to housewares to a lunch counter up front. Woolco stores were often anchored beside a grocery store, forming some of Canada's earliest strip malls and shopping centers. For families in growing suburbs, Woolco was the one-stop shop before one-stop shop was even a phrase people used. Through the 70s and 80s, Woolco expanded to well over 100 locations across the country, competing directly with Kmart and the emerging Zellers chain. It was affordable, reliable, and everywhere. But by the early 1990s, American retail giant Walmart was looking to enter the Canadian market. Rather than building from scratch, Walmart simply bought Woolco's entire Canadian operation in 1994. Almost overnight, the blue and yellow Woolco signs came down, replaced by Walmart's blue and white. It was one of the fastest and most complete corporate takeovers in Canadian retail history. For many Canadians, especially those who grew up in the 70s and 80s, Woolco was the store of their childhood. School supplies, birthday gifts, the lunch counter grilled cheese. It simply vanished in a single year. Woolco didn't fade away slowly. It was replaced overnight. Founded in 1931, various locations Zellers began in 1931 and spent decades as one of Canada's most beloved discount department store chains. Its mascot, Zeddy the Bear, became a familiar face to generations of Canadian kids. The slogan said it all: the lowest price is the law. Zellers built its identity on affordability, and its stores became a staple in nearly every Canadian city and town, often anchoring local malls alongside a grocery store. Owned by the Hudson's Bay Company from 1978 onward, Zellers thrived through the 80s and 90s, fending off competition from Kmart, Woolco, and eventually the arrival of Walmart and Target. But that competition eventually caught up. Through the 2000s, Zellers struggled to modernize, and in 2011, Hudson's Bay sold the leases on most Zellers locations to Target, which converted them into Target Canada stores. A small number of Zellers locations lingered briefly, but by 2013, the chain had effectively vanished from the country. Ironically, Target Canada itself would collapse within 2 years, closing every one of those former Zellers locations for good. Hudson's Bay has since brought back a handful of nostalgic pop-up Zellers sections inside Bay stores, complete with retro branding. But the standalone Zellers Canadians grew up with is gone. Zellers wasn't glamorous. It didn't need to be. It was the store that was always there, until one year it just wasn't. Founded in 1957, Consumers Distributing pioneered a shopping format most Canadians under 40 have never experienced: the catalog showroom. You'd walk in, flip through a thick paper catalog chained to the counter, write down an item number, and hand your slip to a clerk who'd retrieve it from the warehouse behind the wall. There was something almost ceremonial about it. No browsing exchanges, just catalogs, order slips, and the wait to see if your item would come out on the conveyor belt. Founded in Toronto in 1957, the chain grew to hundreds of locations across Canada, specializing in electronics, jewelry, and small appliances at discount prices. For gift-giving seasons especially, Consumers Distributing was where budget-conscious Canadians went first. But the very thing that made it efficient also made it vulnerable. As big-box electronic stores and warehouse retailers offered the same products with actual browsing and better prices, the catalog showroom model started to feel outdated. The company struggled through the mid-1990s and filed for bankruptcy in 1996, closing all of its Canadian stores that same year. Anyone who grew up flipping through that thick catalog writing down a 5-digit item number, and waiting nervously for their gift to appear on the belt remembers consumers distributing fondly. It was a uniquely odd way to shop, and it disappeared almost overnight. Founded 1963, various locations Towers launched in 1963 as a discount department store chain under the Oshawa Group, aiming squarely at budget-conscious Canadian families. Bright, no-frills stores, wide selection, prices that undercut the traditional department stores. Towers stores often included a lunch counter and a garden center, and became fixtures in suburban plazas throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. For many small and mid-sized Canadian towns, Towers was the only real department store option around. The chain grew steadily, competing directly with Zellers and Woolco for the same value-driven shoppers. It wasn't flashy, but it was consistent, and that consistency built real customer loyalty. In 1990, the Oshawa Group sold the Towers banner to Zellers' parent company, Hudson's Bay. Most Towers locations were converted directly into Zellers stores, while others were simply closed. Within a couple of years, the Towers name had disappeared from Canadian strip malls entirely, absorbed into the very competitor it had spent decades trying to outsell. Today, Towers is a footnote for most Canadians, remembered mainly by those who grew up in the towns where it was the only department store around. Its buildings, its lunch counters, and its parking lots quietly became something else, and the name faded from memory. Founded 1868, Dupuis Frères opened on Rue Sainte-Catherine in Montreal in 1868, founded by brothers Nazir and Léon Dupuis to serve the city's French-Canadian community specifically. At a time when much of Montreal's retail establishment catered to English-speaking customers, Dupuis Frères proudly operated in French, employed French-Canadian staff, and became a point of cultural pride for generations of Montrealers. The flagship store grew into a full city block, complete with its own bakery, a rooftop garden, and a radio station that broadcast directly from the building. It wasn't just a department store. It was a cultural institution woven into the identity of French Montreal. Through the early and mid-1900s, Dupuis Frères thrived, seen by many as a symbol of Québécois entrepreneurship, succeeding on its own terms in a competitive retail landscape. But by the 1970s, changing shopping habits, suburban competition, and mounting financial pressure took their toll. In 1978, after 110 years in business, Dupuis Frères closed its doors for good. The flagship building still stands today, repurposed for offices and retail, but the name is gone. For older generations of Montrealers, Dupuis Frères represents something more than a place to shop. It represents a piece of Québécois identity that the city eventually let slip away. Founded 1845, Morgan's traces its roots back to 1845, when Henry Morgan opened a small dry goods store in Montreal. It grew into one of the city's most prestigious department stores, known for its elegant flagship building on St. Catherine Street at Phillips Square. Morgan's catered to Montreal's English-speaking upper and middle class, offering imported goods, fine clothing, and a level of service that made shopping there feel like an event. The store's Colonnade restaurant became a well-known meeting spot for the city's elite. For over a century, Morgan stood as a rival to Eaton's and Simpson's within Montreal's retail scene, carving out its own loyal customer base through quality and prestige rather than discount pricing. In 1960, the Hudson's Bay Company acquired Morgan's, though the stores continued operating under the Morgan's name for another decade. Then, in 1972, Hudson's Bay rebranded all Morgan's locations as Hudson's Bay Stores, ending the name after 127 years. The original flagship building still stands in downtown Montreal, now home to a Hudson's Bay location, carrying on the space, if not the name. Older Montrealers, particularly from the city's English-speaking community, still remember Morgan's fondly. The Colonnade restaurant, the elegant window displays, and a shopping experience that quietly disappeared into a bigger national brand. Founded 1898, Archibald Jacob Fryman opened his first small store in Ottawa in 1898, and over the following decades built it into the capital's leading department store, with a flagship location right on Rideau Street. Freeman's became known for personal service and community involvement. The Freeman family was deeply woven into Ottawa civic life, and the store itself became a downtown landmark, its bright storefront lighting up Rideau Street for generations. Every Ottawa family had a Freeman story, buying a first winter coat, a wedding outfit, or simply window shopping the Christmas displays downtown. It was the kind of store that felt personally connected to the city it served. But as shopping shifted towards suburban malls in the 1960s and 70s, and competition from Eaton's, Simpson's, Sears, and department store chains grew, Freeman's began to struggle to keep pace with larger, better capitalized rivals. In 1972, after 74 years in business, the Freeman family sold the company, and the store was rebranded shortly afterward under a national banner, erasing the Freeman's name from downtown Ottawa for good. Longtime Ottawa residents still speak fondly of Freeman's as more than just a store. It was a family name that meant something to the city, built by a family that gave back to the community that shopped there. Freeman's wasn't swallowed by scandal or bankruptcy. It simply became part of a bigger story, and the name that built downtown Ottawa quietly disappeared from it.